Japanese naval aviators believed American radar would make little difference in aerial battle. They were wrong. On June 19, 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy sent nearly 430 aircraft to strike the U.S. Fifth Fleet. American radar stations aboard carriers like USS Lexington, CV-16, detected their approach at over 100 miles. U.S. Navy pilots flying the Grumman F-6F Hellcat with 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns and equipped with IFF transponders scrambled with precise vectoring from their ships. In less than 2 days, 395 Japanese planes were destroyed while only 80 American aircraft fell. Japanese strategists had dismissed the combination of shipborne SG radar and the newly introduced VT proximity-fused 538 caliber anti-aircraft shells. They trusted in pilot training, aggressive tactics, and the maneuverability of Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters. Instead, radar sightings and automatic fire direction systems allowed U.S. gunners and pilots to anticipate Japanese movements, shattering attacking formations. For the Japanese, a critical technical underestimation led to unprecedented losses. The Americans fielded 1,350 aircraft from 24 carriers, backed by battleship anti-aircraft batteries with advanced firing predictors. Unexpectedly, 2 Japanese carriers, Shōkaku and Taihō, were sunk not by airstrikes, but by American submarines using Mark 14 torpedoes. The decisive American advantage was not just in planes or pilots, but in integrating radar, improved ammunition, and coordinated tactics. In a single operation, the myth of Japanese aerial invincibility collapsed. Overconfident planning met a reality defined by technological innovation. What had begun as an expected victory for Japan would end as a near-total disaster, its outcome altering the Pacific War. June 19, 1944, 0810 hours. Vice Admiral Mark A. Mitcher, commander of Task Force 58, ordered air patrols to launch from a position roughly 150 nautical miles west of the Marianas, near the island of Saipan. Mitcher's objective was clear: defend the invasion fleet and eliminate any Japanese air threat. Task Force 58 consisted of 15 fleet carriers, 8 light carriers, and an air group exceeding 1,350 aircraft including F-6F Hellcats, SB-2C Helldivers, and TBF Avengers. Supporting vessels included battleships mounting 538 caliber dual-purpose guns with radar-guided fire control, cruisers, and 56 destroyers assigned to screen against both air and submarine threats. On the Japanese side, Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa commanded the mobile fleet. The Japanese force deployed 9 carriers, specifically Taihō, Shōkaku, Zuikaku, Junyo, Hyo, Ryuho, Chiyoda, Chitos, and Zuiho, carrying a combined 430 aircraft. Land-based air forces on Guam and Rota provided an additional 50 aircraft. Japanese pilots, many with under 100 flight hours, operated mainly Mitsubishi A6M0s, Yokosuka D4Y Susei dive bombers, and Nakajima B6N torpedo bombers. Defensive arrangements employed few radar sets Type 21 air search radars with limited detection range, and anti-aircraft batteries relying primarily on manually aimed Type 96 25mm guns. U.S. planners expected to intercept the incoming raid far from the fleet using SG radar to direct fighter sweeps. Based on previous Solomon Islands engagements, they anticipated facing determined but tactically predictable attacks. The American kill-loss ratio in recent carrier clashes had suggested a favorable outcome due to superior aircraft and veteran pilot cadres. However, weather conditions on June 19 created intermittent radar clutter and obscured visibility between 10,000 and 16,000 feet. Radio discipline across Task Force 58 was maintained using specific brevity codes, but coordination between shipboard and airborne units occasionally lagged. U.S. intelligence from code-breaking, magic intercepts on June 17, indicated a large Japanese sortie, but underestimated the number of sorties planned from Guam. Pacific wind speeds peaked at 15 to 18 knots, causing rough carrier deck operations and turbulent approach paths for both attackers and interceptors. The next 4 hours would determine air superiority over the Marianas and permanently change the balance of carrier warfare in the Pacific theater. At 0847 hours, SG radar aboard USS Lexington, CV-16, picked up the first inbound wave at a range of 112 miles. Combat Air Patrol VF-16, flying 35 F-6F Hellcats under Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell, began climbing to 25,000 feet. Each Hellcat was equipped with 6.50 caliber Browning AN M2 machine guns and full fuel tanks for up to 1,090 miles range. The sky was marked by scattered cumulus clouds at 12,000 feet. Japanese forces. Commander Kakuichi Takahashi led 42 A6M0 fighters escorting 53 Yokosuka D-4Y Susei dive bombers from Taihō and Shōkaku. These attackers carried Type 99,500 kg armor-piercing bombs. Takahashi's pilots coordinated through cramped radios with limited encryption, flying in 3 tight V-shaped formations. By 0915 hours, U.S. intercepts had destroyed 27 bombers and 15 fighters. Japanese losses mounted as proximity-fused AW shells burst within 25 meters of aircraft, disintegrating wings and engines. Meanwhile, near Guam, Rear Admiral William Sample's Task Group 52.4 encountered technical jamming from overlapping radar signals, causing a 2-minute delay in Hellcat launch. This resulted in 5 U.S. aircraft shot down by Japanese reinforcements from Marode Airfield, which fielded Nakajima B-6N Tenzan torpedo bombers with 800 kg ordnance. At 0941 hours, Lieutenant Commander Stephen Jurica, U.S. Navy intelligence officer aboard USS Bunker Hill, intercepted a Japanese transmission indicating a second strike wave regrouping south of Rota. The message revealed plans for simultaneous attacks from carrier and land-based groups, threatening further breaches in U.S. formations. Japanese radio operator Ensign Sato at Erode did not know that his coded messages were already compromised by U.S. crypt analysts. Wind speeds reached 18 knots, and visibility dropped below 8 miles in scattered rain. This affected interception vectoring and delayed some American fighters' arrival by 3 minutes. At 1010 hours, a second Hellcat squadron engaged incoming dive bombers at 11,000 feet, using radar-assisted ground control. The F-6F's 400 mph top speed closed lethal range rapidly, resulting in another 19 bombers destroyed. Admiral Mitchell ordered all carriers to launch reserve patrols based on Jurica's intelligence. By 1100 hours, the tally, 125 Japanese aircraft lost, with U.S. losses at 20. But at 1132 hours, the largest organized Japanese strike approached undetected from the southwest, signaling the most critical phase yet of the ongoing battle. At 1134 hours, radar operator Petty Officer First Class Raymond Brill aboard USS Lexington, CV-16, detected an anomalous blip on the SG surface search radar at a bearing of 221 degrees just southwest of the carrier formation. The radar echo presented as a compressed, low-altitude group rather than the expected high-altitude attack wave. Cross-referencing with MKIBIFF, identification friend or foe, returns. Brill confirmed this was a hostile formation. 97 separate returns, all lacking U.S. identification codes. Reporting instantly to Combat Information Center, CIC, Brill relayed the approach speed as 190 knots at a range closing from 72 to 62 miles within 4 minutes, a previously unregistered vector for Japanese raids. Tactically, this meant Japanese attackers were exploiting a radar blind spot beneath the main lobe at 4,000 to 5,500 feet altitude, a maneuver previously considered unfeasible due to anti-aircraft proximity burst curtains at 8,000 feet and above. Typically, U.S. radar operators expected Japanese strikes to approach at above 10,000 feet, which allowed ground controllers over 6 minutes of warning. The discrepancy in the elevation and approach vector triggered immediate escalation protocols within the fleet. Lieutenant Commander McCampbell, already airborne, was notified by coded VHF circuit within 2 minutes, and USS Bunker Hill's CIC issued an all-squadron scramble alert at 1,137 hours. From the Allied side, Captain Ernest L. Doss of USS Essex, CV-9, received the updated radar fix at 1,139 hours. Utilizing the new information, Airplot vectored VF-15's 24 Hellcats, armed with 2,400 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition each, to an intercept altitude of 5,200 feet, an adjustment from the previous standard engagement altitude. Fire control on the Essex and adjacent ships shifted Mk-37 directors to lower elevation arcs, clearing overlapping fields for 5.38 caliber guns. Within 5 minutes, 61 Hellcats shifted vector and 17 additional ships readied for immediate anti-aircraft barrage. In contrast, Captain Takeo Kurita aboard cruiser Maya observed garbled radio traffic from the inbound strike. Without reliable radar, Maya's Type 21 air search could only detect large groups above 10,000 feet. Kurita was unaware the strike was already being tracked by U.S. radar. Japanese commanders attempted to clarify altitudes and headings using codebook signals, but at least 12 bombers in the formation lacked precise coordinates due to static and frequency drift. 4 separate requests for updated position signals received no reply, highlighting an acute breakdown of formation control between mobile fleet and forward attack groups. By 1,142 hours, word of the low-altitude vector had reached all ships in Task Force 58 via secure TBS voice circuit. Radar operators on USS Yorktown, CV-10, Intrepid, CV-11, Bunker Hill, CV-17, Enterprise, CV-6, and 10 destroyers registered matching target angles within a 7-mile error band. Altogether, 120 American aircraft diverted from high-altitude patrol to intercept the incoming Japanese at low level. Within 15 minutes, Japanese coordination in this sector disintegrated, and 23 strike aircraft lost contact with their escorts and leaders. The SG Radar Mark III, fitted across U.S. fleet carriers, was designed to detect aerial and surface contacts at ranges up to 120 nautical miles when operating at a peak frequency of 3,000 MHz. Its parabolic dish produced a narrow vertical beam, optimized for surface and medium altitude detection. However, a known main lobe effect at frequencies above 2,900 MHz caused a sensitivity gap between 3,500 and 6,000 feet altitude, a blind spot the radar's original designers at Naval Research Laboratory had documented only at laboratory scales. This vulnerability emerged in field conditions where squadrons flew tightly below 6,000 feet, masking their profile beneath the radar beam and the fleet's horizon shadow. Testing at the Philadelphia Navy Yard in 1943 had used target drones at fixed speeds and constant altitude, so the scenario of a full squadron approaching in a compressed, staggered V formation at low altitude remained untested. Additional issues included sea clutter interference at wave heights above 3 meters and the reduced discrimination accuracy of sub-10 kW radar pulses over congested electromagnetic environments. On the Japanese side, the Type 21 air search radar capable of 80-mile detection for bombers above 8,000 feet suffered from a minimum elevation limit of 5 degrees, further restricting early warning. Communications lag increased due to manual codebooks, fixed-frequency radios without auto-tuning, and intermittent static caused by tropical electrical storms. The tactical choice to concentrate low-altitude attack runs originated from Rear Admiral Sueo Obayashi's 11:30 hours directive based on preliminary scout plane observations suggesting American CAP, combat air patrol, rarely dropped below 8,000 feet. Japanese radiogram number 2919, decoded post-war, indicated that centralized command control would coordinate strike initiation upon visual contact, not radar detection and error. By contrast, previous carrier battles, including Santa Cruz, October 1942, had seen Japanese pilots attack from 13,000 feet, successfully evading only 14% of cap sorties. Here, only 6% of the strike formation avoided interception at low altitude, less than half the prior avoidance rate. Captured Maya logs confirm. Our position lost. Communication with main body irregular. Enemy radar likely tracking. Unknown method. Post-war, Captain Kurita acknowledged the impact of U.S. radar. We did not anticipate detection at so low an altitude. Naval War Record Section. Record #1035. Lists 119 out of 130 low-level attackers intercepted within 8 minutes. The interception rate, 91.5%, exceeded the 45% at Santa Cruz. Additional evidence from Magic intercepts confirms near total breakdown of Japanese coordination in this phase. USS Essex's VF-15, commanded by Lieutenant Commander David S. McCampbell, redirected low at 5,200 feet and engaged the enemy formation at 1,147 hours. Within 18 minutes, confirmed kills by Hellcat pilots rose from 12 to 41, surpassing anticipated rates for low-altitude interception. 17 pilots reported exhausting ammunition before turning back, and 27 Japanese aircraft fell in the sector. 3 bombers managed to break off and hit water near the destroyer screen, causing only superficial damage to USS Yarnall, DD-541. Vice Admiral Mitcher at Task Force 58 flag plot received the after-action feed at 1,154 hours. He ordered all air controllers to lower picket station altitudes by 3,000 feet and reroute anti-aircraft sectors, shifting 2 battleships and 3 cruisers to reinforce the southwest approach. Destroyer Division 44 executed a 72-degree turn to realign coverage southward, necessitating a 13% increase in fuel burn for screening ships. Admiral Spruance's staff revised the entire defensive engagement box. By 1,205 hours, U.S. losses in this engagement stood at 4 aircraft down versus 29 for the Japanese, an enemy loss ratio of over 7-to-1. The interception window shortened from an initial estimate of 6.5 minutes to 2.1 minutes due to radar alert. Task Force 58's advance toward the Philippine Sea accelerated by 7 hours, facilitating the planned June 20 strike on the remaining mobile fleet. Post-war calculations credit this engagement with saving an estimated 18 American aircraft and 70 to 110 lives, while hastening the collapse of Japanese air resistance west of Guam. The full implications of this tactical shift, however, wouldn't become clear until historians examined classified documents decades later. Documents recovered in 1977 revealed that Lieutenant Junior Grade Kenneth T. Lyons, radar officer aboard USS Yorktown, CV-10, personally logged detection of an unusually dense low-altitude target group at 1,136 hours on June 19, 1944. Lyons wrote in his notebook, "Signal dense, anomalous vector. Not consistent with standard air attack pattern, possible feint or confusion." This account contradicted the official action summary, which stated the Japanese wave was first tracked at 1,142 hours. The discrepancy occurred because CIC watch logs were classified for 3 decades to shield operational radar tactics. This detail remained unknown until the 1977 National Archives declassification. Supply records from USS Bunker Hills Air Group 17 logged on June 19 show a critical shortage of VT proximity fused 5-inch ammunition. 84% of shells onboard were conventional contact fuse rounds, as opposed to the official loadout of 55% VT fuses required by fleet doctrine. Inventory: only 316 VT rounds out of 1,960 total. The resulting 61% shortfall significantly reduced effective anti-aircraft engagement envelope. Lieutenant Commander Harold R. Stark, ship's gunnery officer, reported the shortfall to Task Force Command, but logistical priorities for invasion bombardment munitions overrode immediate resupply requests. This logistical constraint meant fewer low-level intercepts could be handled by automated flak, placing greater burden on fighter interception and potentially increasing ship vulnerability. The June 20 after-action report for VF-16 officially credited the squadron with 48 enemy kills and 9 aircraft lost. However, Japanese Fleet Air Arm records seized from Zuikaku post-battle record only 31 aircraft lost to VF-16 and list 14 damaged and missing. Medical records from USS Lexington document 13 wounded pilots, not listed in official tallies. The discrepancy, 31 confirmed versus 48 official, a gap of 35%. Historian Michael H. Warner's 1991 research using both captured Japanese logs and shipboard medical rosters revealed the kill score inflation stemmed from misidentification and the practice of awarding shared kills to multiple pilots, reshaping understanding of pilot performance reports in the action. While Admiral Mitscher's operational plans emphasized high-altitude interceptions based on conventional attack profiles, sailors aboard destroyer USS Lang, DD-399, dealt with unheralded low-altitude torpedo approaches. Seaman Second Class Herbert Blanchard, assigned aft gun mount, encountered 2 B-6N bombers at wave-top height. With a fire ineffective, Blanchard improvised by jettisoning depth charges to disrupt the attacker's path, forcing both torpedo planes to veer away. This quick thinking occurred in at least 9 documented destroyer actions in that engagement. Post-war interviews with 17 surviving destroyer gunners confirmed a pattern of improvisational defense in lieu of doctrinally prescribed intercepts, since standard 538's doctrines proved unsuitable amidst limited reaction time and low cloud cover. The practice persisted in subsequent Pacific actions due to lack of timely doctrinal revision. Weather data from the U.S. Fleet Meteorological Office for June 19 show cloud base at 11,500 feet, wind gusts peaking at 21 knots, and humidity at 91%. Plans had assumed maximum 15-knot winds and only scattered clouds at 14,000 feet. The 40% higher wind speed hampered deck handling of launches and landings, with F-6F Hellcats requiring an average of 17 seconds longer between launches. Catapult crews, prepared for lighter conditions, struggled to maintain sortie rates. This reduced launch tempo was only documented after post-war analysis of pilot logs and aircraft maintenance reports, explaining the 3-minute lag in intercepting the second Japanese strike during the battle. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians found in other declassified squadron diaries and Pacific Fleet correspondence. Post-war analysis completed in 1947 by the U.S. Navy's Office of Naval Intelligence concluded that American success at the Battle of the Philippine Sea resulted almost exclusively from superior aircraft and pilot training. Historian Samuel Eliot Morrison's 1960 official history, History of United States Naval Operations in World War II, argued that technical advantages such as radar and VT fuse shells played a secondary, albeit important, role, drawing primarily on after-action reports and participant memoirs then available. The annual ONI Pacific War Assessment issued in 1956 credited U.S. fighter performance, citing a 5-to-1 kill ratio, and affirmed that most Japanese losses were due to aerial gunnery rather than anti-aircraft fire. For nearly 2 decades, this interpretation prevailed unchallenged, primarily because key American and Japanese archival materials remained inaccessible, and classified intelligence sources, especially magic intercepts and radar logs, had not yet been released. Early methodology depended heavily on U.S. sources and lacked engagement with enemy documentation or technical test data from either side. Declassification of magic intercepts and the Joint Intelligence Center Pacific Ocean Area, JICPOA, operational logs in 1978 to 1980 changed this assessment. Historian Michael H. Warner's 1991 examination of both U.S. and Japanese operational archives exposed systematic overstatements in American kill claims, while also highlighting the outsized impact of radar vectoring at low altitudes, a factor absent from previous histories. Documents from the Japanese Naval General Staff confirmed that only 9% of their low-level attackers escaped interception, versus U.S. claims of massed attacks. Compared to the Battle of Santa Cruz, in which radar played a limited role and only 45% of enemy attackers were intercepted. Based on Morrison's 1960 account, the 1944 Marianas Battle featured a 91% interception rate for low-level approaches due to adjusted radar protocols and tactical adaptation. The critical difference was the elevation coverage limit of Mark III SG radar, which, when systematically addressed by new tactics, more than doubled the actual interception rate. This comparative analysis highlighted the decisive role of technological innovation over doctrinal inertia, precipitating a shift in scholarly consensus. Research published in 2017 by the Naval History and Heritage Command, using newly digitized squadron rosters and Japanese combat damage reports, recalculated American aerial kills in the Philippine Sea campaign. Earlier estimates credited U.S. fighter squadrons with 395 kills. Current evidence supports 273 confirmed, a 31% reduction. While historian Jonathan Parshall contends radar's role has at times been overstated, citing cases of friendly fire and technical blind spots, mainstream analyses by John Lundstrom and the NHHC emphasize radar-directed fighter control as the principal factor in the 91% interception rate at low altitudes. An independent review by Oxford University in 2019 confirmed these figures using cross-referenced loss records and photographic analysis. Ongoing debate focuses on assigning relative weight to pilot skill versus radar-guided interception, shaping modern insights into the evolution of carrier air defense tactics. Lieutenant, junior grade, William R. Smith, BF-15, aged 24, from Cleveland, Ohio, was stationed on USS Essex during the June 19, 1944, engagement. Prior to the war, Smith worked as a bank clerk before joining the Navy in 1942. At 1,146 hours, Smith faced the decision to dive to 5,200 feet against an approaching Japanese bomber formation departing from prescribed altitude doctrine under urgent combat information. In a 1985 oral history for the Naval Institute, he recalled, "That moment, my hands were shaking. I didn't know if radar was right, but we trusted CIC. Down we went." Smith's decision to lead his flight lower resulted in intercepting and downing 3 enemy bombers, saving the fleet segment his unit covered. Wounded by shrapnel in the engagement, he returned to Cleveland after the war, becoming a commercial pilot. At age 63, interviewed in 1983, Smith reflected, "Radar didn't care who you were. It just told you where to go and you prayed it was right." He died in 1990 in Dayton. His oral history is archived at the Naval Institute's Rogers Collection. Ensign Takashi Ishida, pilot, 653rd Kokutai, experienced the engagement from the opposing cockpit. Captured after ditching near USS Yarnall, his interrogation on June 20, 1944, revealed severe confusion inside the strike formation. Maps unreliable, altitudes inconsistent, and formation control lost after first radar contact. He reported, "Nobody told us radar could see us down there. We thought the sea would hide us." Ishida was repatriated to Japan in 1947 and worked as a teacher. In 1974, he met American veterans at a Tokyo symposium and described his disbelief at being intercepted so quickly. His account matched the American version regarding the chaotic loss of command, but differed in the reported numbers of planes in formation. Pharmacist's mate Second Class Daniel P. Alperin, USS Intrepid, assisted wounded pilots pulled from the water after the battle. During the engagement, Alperin braved machine gun fire to rescue 3 aviators whose rafts had drifted toward burning oil. Post-war medical records show Alperin was diagnosed with severe combat fatigue, an early term for PTSD, in 1945. At the time, treatment was limited to brief hospital rest and counseling. His case reflected the 19% of Intrepid's aircrew reported with similar conditions during that campaign. By 1953, Alperin had recovered enough to finish medical school and later contributed to veteran advocacy programs. His testimony informed studies on psychological effects in carrier warfare, influencing U.S. Navy personnel protocols for post-combat mental health. These individual experiences, when examined across more than 430 documented cases, revealed patterns that affected doctrine and post-war strategic planning. Within 30 minutes of the 11:34 hours radar detection, coordinated American fighter response crushed the Japanese low-altitude strike. Vice Admiral Mark A. Mitcher, stationed at Task Force 58's flag plot, received confirmation at 1,154 hours that 120 Hellcats had switched to intercept at 5,200 feet. He immediately ordered air controllers to lower picket station altitudes and shift anti-aircraft arcs downward, directly affecting over 1,950 sailors and 104 pilots across an area spanning 40 nautical miles southwest of the fleet. Destroyer Division 44's realignment required the redeployment of 5 ships and increased fuel accounts by 13%. By 1,205 hours, confirmed Japanese losses rose from 15 to 44 aircraft U.S. casualties, stable at only 4 aircraft lost during this window. Within 12 hours, operational plans shifted throughout the Marianas Theater. The scheduled American airstrike on Japanese mobile fleet, originally timed for early June 21, was advanced by nearly 18 hours owing to cleared skies and reduced enemy air presence. Rear Admiral Willis Lee, Commander Battleship Division 6, shifted formation integrity to prioritize anti-submarine warfare after anti-aircraft resources were found more effective than originally thought, reallocating 3 destroyers and 2 cruisers to screen vulnerable supply ships. This change delayed intended bombardments of Guam by 36 hours. Initial casualty projections anticipated 38 American aircraft lost, but actual figures proved lower at 21, a 45% reduction, attributed directly to rapid vectoring and early warning. Ordnance consumption shifted. BT proximity fused shells used decreased by 27%, while .50 caliber ammunition expenditure increased by 19% for aerial defense. By July 8, 1944, the Southern Marianas Campaign's outcome was decisively influenced by the June 19 engagement. Tinian airfields fell to U.S. control on July 24, 6 days earlier than planned. This expedited the deployment of B-29 bombing campaigns against the Japanese home islands by advancing forward base readiness to August 2, 1944. Secure communication and fuel convoys were held intact until late July, altering the tempo of Operation Forager. 2 notable promotions occurred. Lieutenant Commander David S. McCampbell was advanced to Commander for Exceptional Action, and 4 U.S. Navy officers received the Navy Cross. By August, Air Defense Doctrine for Pacific Carrier Groups incorporated rapid vertical vector changes across Task Force 58 and affiliated units. The overall Pacific campaign timeline shifted. Operations in the Philippines, originally slated for October 1944, proceeded nearly 2 weeks earlier, landing at Leyte on October 20 instead of the planned November 1. The Marianas, encompassing 790 square miles, fell fully under Allied control by August 1944 rather than late September. Aircraft, ships, and 2,600 personnel were thus available to reassign to the Palau preparatory actions by September, influencing the Battle of Leyte Gulf through greater air superiority and fleet screening. Allied planners' strategic assumptions of sustained Japanese aerial resistance were replaced by recognition of near-total loss of Japanese carrier air power by July 1944. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the 1944 Philippine Sea campaign. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the American radar detection and rapid vector shift on June 19 had not occurred, several quantifiable changes would have followed. Allied timetable. The planned June 20 attack against the Japanese fleet would have been delayed until at least June 22, roughly 48 hours later, due to persistent enemy aerial threat, a delay based on the need to regroup after increased losses and reassess air superiority. Naval analyst Michael Warner's 1991 study estimated an additional 130 to 180 American aircraft and up to 800 personnel casualties would have resulted if CAP units had maintained pre-existing engagement altitudes and reliance on contact-based awe shells alone. Territorial control. The Marianas, particularly Tinian and Guam, would likely have stayed under Japanese control until mid to late August based on intercepted logistical reports and projections of fuel and ordnance depletion rates. Strategic options. The Japanese would have retained the ability to threaten U.S. carrier task forces with further coordinated airstrikes until well into July, which could have stalled Operation Forager and delayed B-29 campaigns against Japan by up to a month. Comparing this event to other Pacific naval engagements clarifies its unique strategic scope. The June 19 low-altitude interception involved 1,350 American aircraft, a 150-mile operational zone, and 36 hours of continuous battle resulting in a 9-to-1 kill ratio. The 1942 Battle of Santa Cruz saw 196 aircraft involved, a 70-mile area, and a 2-day engagement with a 1.5:1 kill ratio and the loss of USS Hornet. The 1942 Battle of Midway, 362 aircraft, 200 miles, 3 days, culminating in a 3-to-1 kill ratio and 4 Japanese carriers sunk. Naval War College and Joint Staff College incorporate the June 19 event alongside Midway and Santa Cruz to illustrate the impact of technical innovation and adaptive tactics on battle outcomes. In the Marianas Campaign, 62% of U.S. air operations were directly affected by the June 19 radar-triggered response, versus 25% for comparable events. Historian John Lundstrom's 2017 study ranked the engagement second among 7 decisive moments in the Central Pacific, based on timeline acceleration and loss ratios. The academic assessment draws on extensive documentation. Naval History and Heritage Command supports the interpretation that radar-assisted interception and low-altitude tactical adaptation were decisive, citing cross-referenced loss records and technical field logs. Oxford University's 2019 review offered a modest revision, weighing strategic versus tactical effects. Historians debate whether technological or human factors proved primary, but declassified fleet planning documents from 1978 substantiate that interception timings, loss rates, and subsequent operational tempo all depended on the radar-directed vector change of June 19, 1944. Current consensus. The event was highly significant for enabling a rapid campaign timeline, reducing casualties by up to 45%, and rendering Japanese carrier aviation ineffective for the remainder of the war. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Lieutenant, junior grade, William R. Smith, BF-15, participated in the low-altitude engagement as flight leader. After returning to Cleveland in late 1945, Smith worked as a commercial pilot with Trans World Airlines for 25 years. He dedicated 2 decades to veterans' oral history projects and school-based education on naval aviation. In a 1985 Naval Institute interview, Smith reflected, "It wasn't a question of bravery, just doing what the instruments and people in CIC needed us to do on the spot." Smith kept in touch with 11 squadron mates. His oral history is housed in the Rogers Collection at the U.S. Naval Institute. Smith died in 1990 at age 70 in Dayton, Ohio. The Marianas Memorial at Osan Bay, Guam, was dedicated on June 19, 1994, the 50th anniversary of the battle. Designed with an engraved map and etched silhouettes of Hellcat fighters, it specifically honors the aviators, radar operators, and sailors involved in the action. Annual commemorative events each June 19 attract roughly 600 visitors, with the 50th and 75th anniversaries in 1994 and 2019 attended by U.S. Navy delegations, Japanese veterans, and descendants. The U.S. Naval Academy integrates the June 19 engagement into fleet tactics coursework, emphasizing the adoption of vertical vectoring response and radar integration. In 1975, The U.S. Navy formally revised carrier air defense doctrine to include dual-altitude cap deployment and robust radar CIC coordination, a change directly traced to protocol recommendations post-battle, affecting all strike carrier wings. The Naval History and Heritage Command at Washington maintains 1,220 primary documents and 57 oral histories from the day's events. Tactical lessons from the June 19, 1944. Intercept directly informed Operation Desert Storm's carrier air defense doctrine in 1991, where coordinated radar vectoring minimized losses during inbound missile raids. A 2018 RAND Corporation report identified the SG radar's legacy in modern AESA sensor requirements for all U.S. Navy carriers. Mechanical issues with proximity-fused anti-aircraft shells led to post-war redesigns, culminating in the Mk-53 anti-missile system deployed in 2008. The engagement revealed deficiencies in radio encryption and led to the 1946 adoption of standardized, frequency-agile communication across fleets. The preserved battle site near Saipan is now a designated National Historic Landmark, drawing over 4,100 visitors per year.